So apparently David is in big financial trouble, okay? We already talked previously about the fact that he was apparently moving his properties, okay, into his mother's name and essentially was transferring the deeds to his mother's home. And a lot of speculation was that this was because he is anticipating a very serious civil lawsuit, allegedly, that could potentially ruin him financially, okay? And a lot of people will be happy to hear that David might be in line to getting ruined financially, but he's clearly making a lot of money, all right? I did a video where I did a calculation that I thought he'd made at least $700,000 from music since the body was found in his car. Now the estimates have gone up. Someone else has done an even more in-depth analysis with another kind of, with a hype auditor account, which I didn't know this was a thing. I really needed this a couple of weeks ago. But they're saying they believe David has earned roughly $1.3 million in the last month. So he is stacking paper. He's stacking a lot of money from streaming. Okay. People are saying, look, he is making a lot of money, okay? Some people are disagreeing. Some people are saying, yo, you know, we need to stop with this narrative. This person said his streams might have skyrocketed, but people need to chill with the narrative that he's getting rich off this. Realistically, every dollar he's making is about to get funneled straight into the pockets of his legal team. Big-name defense attorneys don't come cheap. We're talking hundreds of thousands just for retainers, and that's before trials. Expert witnesses and the endless billable hours kick in. So sure, he might have earned 1.3 mil off streams, but that money's basically gone the moment he signed the retainer agreement. He's not cashing out. He's paying to delay the inevitable. You don't beat a case like this. You just go broke trying. Word to Lil Durk. People are saying his record label is probably keeping 85% of that money anyway. They're talking about his $3 million advance that he got, so he'll be paying that back still. A lot of people are pointing out predominantly the mass amount of debt he's accrued from cancelling a tour will have to be paid out to venues and vendors, as well as merch cancellations, a cancelled deluxe physical print of his last release, fees from his label, and likely there's a clause to cover their asses in this situation, which will leave him with little but to cover legal. That's why handing over his assets to his mother, he has no control over what he's received as residuals. But all the same, to reiterate, as I have several times, stop using his sounds on apps or listening to his music out of curiosity and seek out better artists. Some people are arguing back, though. They're saying, until he's charged with a crime, his legal fees aren't going to be that high. He's already paid the retainer. Unless the police charge him, there isn't anything to beat. Civil action by the family, I guess, but that's a different lawyer than your criminal defense team, right? So people are saying that, look, he could have been making more money than this. He could have been making less money than this. He could have had sponsorship deals. He had a whole lot going on. Okay, some people are disagreeing. But essentially, it has now been posted in Reddit. A lot of people are expecting the family of Celeste to do a multi-million-dollar civil suit. Okay, this is a YouTube short that's basically explaining why.
When a minor goes missing and an adult who is not her parent is closely involved, the question is always the same. Was there foul play? Why is she dead? How is she dead? In the case of David, the R&B star who had the decomposing body of Celeste Rivas Hernandez in his $100,000 Tesla Frunk parked near his house, could there be a civil case here? And my answer to that is absolutely. There's videos, social media posts, and even a podcast appearance. She even had a matching SHH tattoo with David on their finger, which strongly suggests a private, secretive relationship. After all, at all times relevant to the relationship, Celeste was a minor child and David was an adult. That duty may form or strengthen the basis for civil liability in a wrongful death or negligence claim. And California law allows a wrongful death action under its civil code.
So apparently under the civil code, okay, they can file a civil lawsuit, okay? And people are saying it's highly likely, and it's probably one of the reasons why he's transferred his properties into a trust to protect his assets from a potential civil case against him. They're saying, yep, under Texas law, your homestead is protected from most creditors. Two problems for David. You can only claim one piece of property as your homestead, and you actually have to live there. He's got more than one home, and he lives in Los Angeles. People are saying, good point, but if you transfer the property under Texas or California law to avoid judgment, it's a fraudulent transfer. His asset protection would have to be set up pre-event, not post, to be most effective. Highly likely that a Rivas Hernandez suit could cut through post-death transfers. Sounds simple, right? Not so. Not a simple case, particularly if you can't prove that David killed her. They may not be able to prove that. However, there is another angle under CA law that is very interesting and relevant to this entire thread. So this is the video I've just skimmed through for some interesting stuff, and he does make some cool and very insightful points about the difference between the criminal and civil trials and how they can actually work in tandem. Check this out.
Wrong. The answer is yes. A civil case can be brought at the same time as a criminal investigation. In fact, I'm handling a case right now involving assault and battery, and the prosecution in the criminal case is cooperating with me. The civil case is pending in civil court, and the criminal case is now pending in the criminal court. But even before the criminal information was filed, I was talking to the prosecutor, and we traded information, we worked together. That was the way that it worked. The power of a civil suit can bring the family of Celeste incredible results. While David can refuse to answer questions based on his pleading of the Fifth Amendment, the court has the power to compel all electronic evidence, cell phone data, track logs, photos, emails, videos, social media postings, and so much more. Already, without getting into David's private phone, emails, or photos, we have a lot of information, and many of you are probably scratching your head saying, why wasn't this guy arrested yet? Well, that's for the criminal attorneys to discuss, but you can imagine if you bring the power of the court into play on a civil side, a good attorney conducting discovery could really find answers to who, what, when, how, where, and why. And all of these questions that we asked above may likely have answers, and a good attorney conducting discovery could get these answers readily through the power of subpoena. And California law allows a wrongful death action under its civil code. Under California law, specifically California Code of Civil Procedure, section 377.60, a wrongful death claim may be filed by individuals who are closely related to the deceased and suffered due to death. The statute outlines the following potential survivors: the surviving spouse or domestic partner, which is of course not applicable here; children, putative spouse, or that's someone believed or in good faith they were legally married to the decedent; stepchildren, parents or legal guardians if the decedent was a minor and the parents are deceased; or siblings. If no other heirs are available, the siblings can recover under this law. It's a pretty broad law. California actually has a good wrongful death law that's very encompassing. In the case of Celeste Rivas Hernandez, it is reported that she had both a mother and a father. I don't know the facts on that, but that's what's reported. Therefore, if true, at minimum, they would be the primary individuals eligible to file a wrongful death claim on Celeste's behalf. Of course, any civil case would face defenses. Let's talk about those. David's attorneys could argue that other adults and family members of Celeste were responsible for her whereabouts, i.e. her parents. They could also question the strength of the timeline that we talked about today, or suggest that the photos and videos do not establish care or custody. These defenses could sway a jury, but they do not eliminate the potential for civil liability entirely. Another argument you may see in a case like this is defending on the closeness or the strength of the relationship between Celeste and her parents. Already, there is video out there of an ex-boyfriend of Celeste who says here in this video that Celeste had problems with her parents and, her parents were mean. What problems? He doesn't really say. Certainly doesn't say they were abusive. I mean, my 13-year-old probably thinks I'm strict, but he's not running away. Whatever the case, in a civil case, the defense could probe into this relationship directly. The goal would be to establish that the parents did not care or had little to no emotional connection with their daughter, Celeste. After all, she ran away and was gone for over a year. They'd make those arguments. And I mentioned internet sleuths. If all the internet sleuths can find pictures and posts about Celeste being with David, what did the parents know? Did they know that she was at his home? I mean, this sort of defense could diminish the recovery of the estate if the evidence uncovered or supported lack of care, apathy, or any sort of an abusive relationship. But again, we don't know any of that yet.
So I think these are really important and interesting points being raised, because I have no doubt, in my personal opinion, that there is going to be some kind of civil suit against David, regardless of if a criminal trial goes ahead. And it would be interesting if, subpoenas were used for some of this private information, for the phone records, for the messages between them to be revealed. And, it's possible that that stuff might actually come out publicly in a civil suit. But I do think it's interesting that the fact that the state of the home that she came from actually might allow David to actually have a defense in this case. And a lot of people have been pointing their fingers at the family. I don't personally think it's right. But if this is a look, right? This is a real a real lawyer from a real law firm who is actually breaking it down and saying that could be a defense. David could actually play that to his strengths.
Another factor in civil cases is whether a judgment can actually be collected. This comes up a lot in these murder cases. Typically, where there's a murder suspect, that suspect usually does not have assets or money to collect. Unlike many criminal defendants, David is a celebrity with potentially significant assets, music royalties, and perhaps insurance coverage. Who knows? Look at his history. David.
Damn, bruh, no way can you insure for a body being found in your trunk. That would be absolutely insane. But he does have significant assets, and we've just seen they're saying he might have made over $1 million in a month after this situation. And look, no doubt the family are going to want to go and get a piece of that. They're already doing a GoFundMe. Okay, well, whether or not you agree with that, this is really bad for David.
It has a studio album with a major record label, that's Interscope. Moreover, he has songs like Romantic Homicide, Here With Me, Placebo Effect.
Now, you got to pay close attention to what he's talking about here. He's not just saying these are all things that have made him a lot of money, but the ownership of the rights to his Romantic Homicide song, that's valuable. Even if he's moving houses around and he's saying, I ain't got no money or whatever, he's got his record deal is worth money. The royalties and the ownership, people always talk about ownership. Does the label own the song? Does the artist own the song? Are they independent? But who knows? They might actually come for some of the rights and royalties over his song, and you never know. I think we ended up seeing in that O.J. Simpson case that the family of Ron Goldman sued, and they actually obtained the rights to his book, If I Did It. And they were making money off of that.
And Feel It. These are all very, very popular songs. I've personally not listened to them, but my 13-year-old, he says they're hits. He says that David has a big following. And some have argued that songs like Romantic Homicide is some sort of a foreshadowing of the mental state or plan that David had for Celeste. I read the lyrics. They're definitely pretty dark. But this being a motive seems like a stretch, but who knows? Could it be evidence in a case? Maybe. We'd have to see. Finally, this is a perfect segue for motive. While motive is not an element to proving either negligence or, in my understanding, required to prove murder, it certainly can support a jury's understanding of why a person would do something like commit a murder. And I want to be very clear here. There is no evidence or allegation that I have seen that there's a sexual relationship that occurred with David and Celeste. However, hypothetically, if it were discovered that such a relationship existed, California Penal Code Section 261.5, statutory rape, could apply. I mean, the age of consent in
So that's interesting. He said there's no evidence. And look, it depends whether you categorize those messages where she was allegedly talking to her friend about having had relations with David as evidence. That could be hearsay. They could be fake screenshots. She could be lying. But this is a whole other problem that he's going to face. Because, yeah, sure, if they can't prove the murder, but if they can prove that an actual relationship was going on between these two people that was physical in nature, it's going to be a big problem. And if there's anything on his phones, if there's anything on his devices, it's going to be a problem.
In California is 18, and criminal penalties vary based on the age difference. But again, this is purely a hypothetical consideration and not an assertion of fact. All of those facts are probably going to be discovered by the criminal side or in the civil side.
So I just noticed something kind of interesting, right? I mean, it says a person who's 21 or older who engages in an act of unlawful with a minor who's under 16 is guilty of either a misdemeanor or a felony. But he wasn't 21 years of age. He wasn't 21 years. He was 20. All right. He was even younger when this happened. So to be honest, the way that this is phrased, under 21 years of age, he doesn't actually qualify for that. So this is gonna be a tough one.
California's facts are probably going to be discovered by the criminal side or in the civil side. Some have argued that this would provide a motive for elimination of Celeste, but again, we don't currently have facts to support this as a motive, so it's really too early to make any real comment as to whether the motive is going to be part of the case. So where does this leave us? Based on the timeline, public reports, and California law, a civil case could definitely be pursued here.
So he's saying a civil case can be pursued?
If no criminal charges are ever filed, or if a criminal case is unsuccessful. We see this all the time. O.J. Simpson was acquitted for the murder of Nicole Brown Simpson, but the personal injury attorneys filed a successful civil suit where they received a verdict for $33.5 million against O.J. Simpson. For all these reasons, I place this on the justice scale at a 6 out of 10. For now, there's enough for a civil attorney to investigate, potentially hold somebody, David, accountable, and pursue damages. David appears to be collectible. Unlike many criminal cases here, we have a defendant that most likely can pay a full judgment. If it can be established that David was either...
Peep what he said, man. He said, in this case, we have a defendant who likely is rich enough to pay a full judgment. So no doubt they're going to come after him. And he's saying that there's enough out there to realistically bring a case. And he's a lawyer.
They're in care or custody of Celeste, or that any negligent action he took led to her death. He most likely could pay a full judgment, if not now, over time. If further facts come out that solidify any of what we discussed today, the justice scale rating on this case goes up and up and up. Rhetorical questions to leave you with thinking with, audience. Where did Celeste live while living away from home? Why did no other adult come forward, like a roommate, a family member, or a friend that she lived with? Nobody's come forward and said, hey, she's missing. And ultimately, if she had no other caretakers, is it more likely than not that an adult that she was last seen with bore a duty to protect her? These are the questions a civil court would examine, and the answers could have serious implications for or against David. This is a tragic case, guys. And the full story is still unfolding, but for...
So shout out to Personal Injury Perspective, the Hastings law firm, man. This is a really interesting channel. That was good analysis. I rock with that, and it's only got 15 views right now. But a lot of people are saying that, you know, it's not a simple case, and the California law could have him banged to rights, okay? They're saying this is why he put the houses in his mama's name. People are saying 100% whether or not he's guilty or not of murder, he and his associates are going to get sued in civil court and lose millions. It's a lot easier to win a civil case than a criminal case. Look at OJ, Kobe, and even Trump. It says if he doesn't settle out of court, what will be interesting, though, is what else comes out about everyone else involved. He will definitely be pointing fingers at everyone will be pointing fingers at each other, since I'm sure everyone thinks someone else is at fault for how Celeste's situation turned out. This is very true, but the challenge here is what happens if we can't prove that he killed her. That's a real problem. However, California law and all the work on this thread may help the family get around this, okay? But apparently there's no lawsuit pending. The family, if they hired counsel, would have access to electronic evidence ASAP. Nobody is talking about the civil lawsuit side. And I just wanted to add another little bit of my own personal analysis on this situation before I round this off. I linked up with a homie last night who has a Tesla Model X. And I said, wait a minute. You got Tesla Model X, right? That's the same car as David. I said, let me have a look at that frunk. I hadn't seen the inside of a Tesla Model X frunk. And I'm not going to lie to you. This is my personal opinion. But that frunk was really not that big. I said there ain't no way you're getting a body inside that without manipulating it, cutting it, twisting it up, folding it up. I'm not going to lie, that trunk was small and it really didn't have a lot of depth. I was actually amazed by seeing this. I saw that with my own eyes. I went and had an inspection of that trunk. Okay, I didn't film it because it was someone's personal car. Somebody, you know what I'm saying, somebody you might have heard of. But anyway, that frunk was not looking big enough for a body to be in there, man. So that is definitely bad news. And there's one more thing that I want to share with you guys before I wrap this one up, because there is actually a TikToker, an influencer that has now come out to basically say that she saw David with Celeste when she was just 13 years old. So check this.
There's a video of me at a party in the same room as David and Celeste. It was someone's birthday party over a year ago. I'm getting lots of comments, mostly on my main account, of people being like, why didn't you say anything if you knew? I can't believe you're trying to hide the fact that you were at a party with them. You knew the whole time and didn't say anything, just shit like that. I did not even know who David was until a few days ago. There's usually hundreds of people at those parties. They're always dark, and I didn't even interact with them. I think it's so crazy, like trying to even make it seem like I had any part in any of this as someone who was just in the same room as them with like 400 other people. All I can say is I hope that that girl's family gets the justice that they deserve. Please stop trying to include me in this and message his actual friends who knew things.
So you included yourself in it when you made that TikTok, love. But anyway, you know, it's interesting. People are saying that they were around him. They were around Celeste. They see her around, and she was very young. So look, okay, I personally think this criminal lawsuit, we don't know where the criminal case is going to go. I'm starting to feel like so much time has passed now. I don't feel like they've got any evidence on him, to be honest with you. Like, it's starting to feel like they probably don't have what they need to bring criminal charges, but that doesn't mean that this civil suit won't go somewhere. The bar is much lower in the civil suit with all of the evidence that's out there already, let alone with subpoenaed information from the personal mobile phones. I think it's going to be hard for him to beat a civil case, in my opinion, but it might be easy for him to beat that criminal case. So look, he might end up losing he might delete it. All right, the court's going to delete everything. The court's going to delete everything from his bank account, okay? So, unfortunately, David could be going to the poorhouse after this one, okay? Some people are going to be happy to hear that. Some people aren't. But yeah, man, Civil suit's about to go through his bank account and delete everything. So stay tuned. I'll keep you guys updated. Literally, if there's an arrest, I'm going to be just all over. I'm going to give you all the information, okay? So I'm keeping an eye on this story. There hasn't been much new stuff other than this talk about this civil case, and I do think it's interesting, so I wanted to share that with you guys. But I'll keep you updated in another update, and I will catch you very soon. I appreciate you, and I'm out.